Sonic games are iconic for a lot of different reasons, whether that be for the games themselves, the characters, or even just the presentation. However, what I think you'll care most about though is the music. Within the multitude of games that there are for the Blue Blur, whether they're fantastic or straight up dog water, one thing has always been consistent, and that is the soundtrack. We don't talk about that one. Although a select few games have too many tracks to call one a legitimate favorite, and being in my think tank on how to describe some of my favorite tunes from the many games I love, I've decided rather than doing a ranking of some kind with every Sonic soundtrack, we are going to be diving into each of the mainline games and going over what I believe to be the best track out of that specific game. And so without any further ado, let's answer today's question of, what is the best track in every mainline Sonic game? Alright, so before the video begins, I actually just want to take a quick second to talk about the fact that I recently had the opportunity to go to Washington DC and see the Sonic Symphony in person. Pretty sure most of you are well aware on what it is, and honestly I want to say that if you are able to visit the Sonic Symphony, I can't stress enough how much it is worth it as a Sonic fan and just a person and a fan of good music to go to. Anyways, it was just a quick little thing I would want to mention since, you know, this is a Sonic video talking about Sonic music. I just thought there'd be no other time to mention it really, but anywho, onto the actual video. So before anything else, let's go over some ground rules first because, well, without any kind of indicator, we might as well go through a playlist for each Sonic game and go, yep, this is the one. So first off, to get it clear, this is my opinion. Don't worry, unlike someone, I'm not going to shoot you if you don't agree with any of the tracks I choose. Second, when going through the soundtrack of the mainline Sonic game I'm making my choice based on, it's not only what I find to be the most catchy or the most fitting to the level it belongs to, but also what I find myself re-listening to the most, because like a true and blue Sonic fan, all I listen to is his music. Next, I'm going to be avoiding main themes like Live and Learn and Endless Possibilities, for example. Those themes are fantastic and iconic and yes, amazing, but it would also be too generic, and as such I'm keeping my choices exclusive to levels themselves. And lastly, this part can be mainly for fun, but if any of you, yes you, want to play along, go ahead and comment down which tracks you choose for each game along with me, and we can see which ones we agree with and which ones we don't agree with. Anywho, let's start with the OG. Sonic the Hedgehog, the original 1991 classic and obviously the starter when it came to showing off that this Hedgehog has some bangers. Sonic 1's soundtrack contains a total of 17 tracks, with 11 of those being actual music and the rest of those being basically sound effects. So when it comes to the first game featuring the Blue Blur, most would say that all around Sonic 1 has a pretty great soundtrack. Some memorable tracks go from Green Hill obviously all the way to some great tracks like Starlight. However, and purely because of how I was as a kid, the most frequent track I would find myself re-listening to was actually Spring Yard Zone. This track is not only jazzy in all the right ways, but the lead composer Masato Nakamura did an excellent job establishing the vibe of this classic title. And that's not mentioning about how Spring Yard itself as a level has this perfect city jazz vibe that really feels like Sonic's going through Vegas before Casino Night was even a thing. Although I have other favorites like Marble Zone or even Scrap Brain, Spring Yard was always just one that scratched my brain in all the right areas and is always a joy to listen to. Especially when it came to the T-Lopes Reimagined remix, which has the perfect amount of jazz and definitely an amazing way to listen to an old track in a brand new flair. Next up on our list is Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Now, unsurprisingly, the soundtrack for this game is just as amazing, if not better than the predecessor. Once again, the lead composer is Masato Nakamura, and this soundtrack has a total of 25 tracks, so quite a bit more than what we had in Sonic 1. Now, as we know, Sonic 2 features a lot more new zones, and this comes with even more memorable tracks, going from Chemical Plant to Casino Night, to even just the iconic Death Egg boss theme. However, the main track I often find myself returning to is the Mystic Cave Zone. It has this vibe of the mystic but intriguing area that Sonic and Tails have to tread through to follow Robotnik, and I love the sound of not only this music but the general look of the prominent colors of purple and green in the Mystic Cave, which once again prove my point how amazing this track is and complements this level's surroundings, but also does amazing as its own standalone track. And once again, T-Lopes also worked on a fantastic remix for this track for the Sonic 2 HD project, and it just sounds phenomenal. If it's not clear enough, I love T-Lopes and all of his remixes for that matter. Following Sonic 2 comes Sonic CD. This game features 39 tracks, and now, while it's clear to see that this has one of the best Sonic soundtracks in the entire series, this one took me a bit of time to think over, because the main gimmick of this game is time travel. Thus, each of the 7 zones in CD feature 4 variations of their level themes, one for the past, one for the present, one for the bad future, and one for the good future. Also, side note, I want to quickly mention that in this section we're only going to be talking about the Japanese version of Sonic CD's OST, since It's really the only version I listen to, so I'm sorry to you US fans about it, but... So when it came to deciding on which theme had me coming back the most, it actually ended up being one of the first themes I heard from CD when playing this game for the first time on my old Android phone as a 9-year-old boy. Palm Tree Panic Past. You just get such a relaxing vibe, and the general look of the zone itself is such a joy to traverse through, and with CD having exploration in mind for the gameplay, this song just fits perfectly. Now, while yes, there are some amazing tracks like Stardust Speedway or Tidal Tempest, really going over all the many variations of the songs you hear throughout CD, Palm Tree Panic Past is definitely something I'd want on any playlists. Well, that is excluding a gym playlist. Though, I won't lie, this one was a bit more tricky due to the many variations of each level theme, but overall, this soundtrack just slaps, so really any choice works. And this can be thanked by the two amazing composers of CD soundtrack, Naofumi Hataya and Masafumi Ogata. So again, really any track works here, but Palm Tree Panic Pass is just what really hit home most for me. Passing Sonic CD, we do reach the end of the classic era, but we also do reach everyone's favorite two-parter with Sonic 3 and Knuckles. And for my sake, we are keeping both parts in one section, but I'm choosing two tracks, having one be from the Sonic 3 soundtrack and having one be from the Sonic and Knuckles soundtrack. Both games have a total of 51 tracks, 33 belonging to Sonic 3 and 18 going to Sonic and Knuckles. Now, overall, both games have amazing, iconic, memorable tunes, but what I'm keeping an eye on again are those tracks that really scratch that part of my brain that makes me want to revisit it. For Sonic 3, it's gonna be Hydro City Act 2. Can anyone blame me? This shit is literally like crack for me. I love the Sonic 3 soundtrack. Sure, we have tracks like Ice Cap or Launch Base, but no. Without a doubt, Hydro City wins. As for Sonic and Knuckles, my go-to track is going to be Sky Sanctuary. Sure, it's more of a basic choice, but really it's the most prominent track I'm always thinking of when you just hear Sonic and Knuckles. But also, we have a fantastic remix in Sonic Generations itself, so who can blame me for choosing this one? In general though, most of these tracks from both parts of Sonic 3 have an amazing overall vibe, and this is just thanks to both of the lead composers, Brad Buxer and Jun Sonoy. But moving past the great music that came with the classics, the next area we'll be treading through starts with Sonic Adventure 1. This game alone is fantastic, and there are a lot of reasons for that, but the main pivotal point that I'm going to be looking at was that the Dreamcast allowed for a higher quality of music, and thus the lead composer of the soundtrack for Sonic Adventure, Jun Sonoy, cooked! This game features 74 total tracks belonging to the newly introduced hub worlds, menu screens, minigame music, and while going over the many levels featured in each character's story, without a doubt the level I'm going to be picking is Red Mountain. Although I will mention, it shouldn't be overlooked how visually amazing a lot of these areas are and how even more fitting those tracks belong with each of those stages. And again, we have many great tracks like Emerald Coast, Speed Highway, or even Twinkle Park. Red Mountain just has this amazing and memorable theme that just comes out of my personal favorite level out of Sonic Adventure. And let's be honest, who could forget that amazing part when Sonic enters the mountain and the music just changes completely, but like for the better. Continuing onward, Sonic Adventure 2 is the next game on our list. This game has a multitude of reasons to be as beloved as it is. Some may say the gameplay, some may say the story, but I'm going to say the music might be one of the most prominent parts about this fantastic title. To start off, some of these tracks and the songs that come with them not only have such a recognizable way of being implemented, but help pace and impact the story in such a way to make Sonic Adventure 2 as great as it is. We have many levels like City Escape, Meteor Herd, Prison Lane, Wild Canyon, and many more. What makes this soundtrack different though is due to the separation of the speed, treasure, and mech stages. Thus this results in you getting kind of a different vibe for how each level theme is connected to each of the characters that you'll be taking control of. So for this specific case, I'll be choosing a track from once again a speed level, a treasure level, and a mech level. Sonic Adventure 2 contains a total of 80 tracks, and although all of them are amazing, when it comes down to it, for the speed stages, these tracks are designed mainly for Sonic and Shadow respectively. This results in a lot of the level themes to not only feel fast-paced, but also extremely rock-styled. The track that wins is Green Forest, because not only do I feel the urgency of a literal fucking island blowing up, but the literal need to get Sonic off of that island. This track does a fantastic job of getting you invested into what you're playing, and as the name of the track for Green Forest states, you won't stop, just go. Now, as for the treasure hunting levels, these tracks belong to Knuckles and Rouge. These levels have themes that either for Knuckles are very much like rap, or for Rouge have more of a smooth kind of jazz. And so the track that I went with is actually Dry Lagoon. It's such a chill tune to listen to when looking for the shards of the Master Emerald, and definitely a must-have in any playlist. The general vibe of Dry Lagoon is so peaceful, and you can almost see how graceful Rouge is when finding these emeralds, and not wasting any time in showing off how skilled she is. Lastly, for the mech levels, they are designed for Tails and Dr. Eggman. These stages contain tracks that have kind of a techno feel that kind of match the intellect of the two characters that you take control of. The track that I chose was Mission Street. I love the way that not only this track sounds, but the way that it almost feels like Tails' vibe almost like rubs off onto the track, and not only that, but it's just something exciting to re-listen to, and the level itself is just really fun. And although I'm not a big fan of the mech stages themselves, I do gotta admit, they've got some bangers. Sonic Heroes follows suit. And well, there are a lot of tracks that I love from this game. Like the titles prior, the lead composer is again Jun Sonoy, and Sonic Heroes features 55 total tracks. With the many variations of levels here and the multiple teams of characters that we have, there are some great options for some level themes like Grand Metropolis, Bullet Station, and Frog Forest. However, my personal pick landed on Casino Park. I mean bro, this track is one of my favorites when it comes to these casino type levels, and the music perfectly matches the look of the stage and is instantly a classic when it comes to what a casino themed Sonic level should sound like. So this next game is a bit weird for me considering I've never actually beaten Shadow, but then there was this whole problem where I was deciding if it was part of the mainline series or not, and I just decided to say fuck it and include it because guess what? Why not? Thankfully, to enjoy the music of Shadow the Hedgehog, you won't need to actually play the game. Going through the soundtrack though, there were a total of 101 tracks. Holy shit. Anywho, some of the many songs I enjoyed include Prison Island, Sky Troops, and even Gun Fortress, but what I ended up going with was Digital Circuit, which perfectly matches not only the gameplay, but the entire look of the stage that it belongs to. And although I can't say a lot considering I've never beaten this game, and well, I really can't go in depth like at all, but if you don't believe me, go listen to it yourself. I think it's an amazing song that comes out of an even better soundtrack. Sonic 06 is up next, and what more can I say? The game may be far from great, but the soundtrack for this title is next to none. Having one of the best main vocal themes with his world, the general tone of the music matching the game's plot perfectly, and showing that Sonic can sort of handle a more serious toned plot. God, there's just a lot of reasons to love the Sonic 06 soundtrack. The lead composer for 06 was Tomoyo Otani. This soundtrack features 97 tracks, and almost all, if not most of them, are amazing. The hub world themes are fantastic, notably Solina Castletown and New City being great eye-catchers. But as for the levels themselves, we have some great choices like Dusty Desert, Crisis City, Tropical Jungle, and many more choices. But for me, the winner has to be Kingdom Valley, composed by Mariko Nanba. This track feels like something free in the wind, like Sonic with his carefree and gotta go fast attitude. The thing I love most about this track though has to be the seriousness of the melody and how it plays into the level itself. Seriously, it's one of my favorite levels and one of my favorite themes that I love listening to, but also, you know, Kingdom Valley is just a really beautiful location on its own to traverse through. Now heading into the territory of the storybook games, we have Sonic and the Secret Rings. This is definitely a game which I feel like I should have covered by now, but have yet to. Point is though, unlike the game, the music is actually very good. The lead composer is Kenichi Tokoi, and Secret Rings features a total of 41 tracks, and many of the tracks here have this very rock-heavy and fast-paced aura behind it. And despite what some may say about the gameplay, one thing you can be certain about is that Sonic is going to be going very fast. Many great tracks like It Has Come to His, Worth the Chance, and The Last Palace are amazing. But with all honesty, the track I chose is The Palace That Was Found. A great track on its own, but whenever it's used in the levels, you can feel the fast-paced energy and not just the gameplay, but with how the levels are designed themselves, and, you know, having the music to back it up too. It's time. The GOAT. Peak. My favorite Sonic game. What more can I say? If there was one game that I believe to have the best Sonic soundtrack, it's this one. Not only does Sonic Unleashed feature a wonderful 80 tracks, but also the lead composer Tomoyo Otani did a fantastic job with cultural diversity and really made this feel like Sonic's world adventure. Point is, the multiple different environments you visit as both a hedgehog and werehog show you different cultures from all around this blue ball we all live on. Now, one thing we're going to account for is that each country Sonic visits has a theme for both the nighttime and the daytime, whether that be in the hubs, the levels, or just the bosses. So, for this game specifically, we'll be picking tracks for both of those respectively. For the daytime, you'll see many great level themes from the Greece-inspired Windmill Isle of Podos, the Chinese-inspired Dragon Road of Chunan, or even the Italian-inspired Rooftop Run with Spagonia, and many more. But my personal favorite day theme comes from Shamar with Arid Sands. The sandy terrain, the canyon Sonic runs comes on, and even the townsfolk you'll boost past quickly all perfectly match the vibe of the level that you see the blue blur speed through. And on top of that, this track has amazing instrumentation and is perfect for the level. Arid Stance has a strong prominent drums that play in the background that give you this feeling that matches Shamar perfectly. As for the nighttime levels themselves, we see the same countries just at a different time. But that's not all to say, considering a lot of the tracks go from very upbeat to a much more smooth, mellow tone when playing as the Werehog. And with that, what I think is the best nighttime theme has to belong to Empire City with Skyscraper Scamper by Fumi Kumatani, having the perfect vibe of jazz that already fits with the New York-esque location. The song also features a lot of prominent instruments like a piano, drums, and even snapping to bring it all together that really gives this big band-esque feel to the nighttime roofs of Empire City. As a large fan of this type of music, sometimes the nighttime themes just slapped a lot harder than the daytime ones did, and that's just being honest. But before we move on, I should mention Shamar Knight's hub theme is one of my favorite tracks from the entirety of the Sonic Unleashed soundtrack. It makes a good use of a lead saxophone, violins, and trumpet fanfare to give it an Arabian vibe without detracting from the notion that it's a lounge band performance. As a matter of fact, just take a listen. Anyways, I think you get my point. Next up, we have the last installment in the storybook series with Sonic and the Black Knight. This game features a total of 78 tracks with the lead composer, Jun Tsunoy. The general tone of this music is very, old-fashioned in the sense that it feels straight from this era of Knights and around the time which Black Knight presents itself with. But that's not to take away from how they try to modernize a lot of these tracks with a sort of rock feel to them. Some of the many great melodies you can hear come from some stages like Misty Lake, Camelot Castle, and even Titanic Plain. But for my main choice, it's gotta be Deep Woods. It's one of those tunes that just gets you excited to speed through the level as you master the road to becoming a swordsman, and as you witness Sonic becoming a skilled expert with Caliburn. The forest itself is great too as you speed through, defeat enemies, and swing the mighty sword and witness Sonic becoming Knight of the Wind. Sonic Colors follows up, and, well, it's colors. However, before we move on to this very colorful title though, if you guys have enjoyed what you've been seeing so far, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button as it really does go a long way. And I'm thinking that if you're enjoying what you're seeing so far, you might not regret your choice on doing so. Anywho, Colors overall has a great soundtrack, and the lead composer is Tomoyo Otani. This title features a total of 82 tracks and has a lot of memorable songs like Tropical Resort, Planet Wisp, Starlight Carnival, and of course in Although We Can't Choose It, But Reach for the Stars, which is an amazing vocal theme, and also one of my personal favorites. The track I went with though was Sweet Mountain by again Fumi Kumatani. Seriously, I'd love to visit this planet as it seems like it would be awesome. The music itself as well is fantastic and always want to come back solely because of the soundtrack. The level itself too also just matches the vibe perfectly and surrounding the sweet area that Sonic visits at his time on this planet. And come on, it's genuinely a great listen. Who wouldn't like to listen to it? Well, unless it's the Sonic Colors Ultimate version, which then I totally understand. So, I got into a bit of a questionable position with Sonic Generations. You see, the game was made for the 20th anniversary of Sonic the Hedgehog and is such a throwback game, which implies that we are viewing older locations, which also mean that most of the soundtrack is just remastered versions of already existing levels. So to mix it up, I actually decided to break one of our small rules and choose one track which I particularly found myself enjoying the most. So with Generations, it has the lead composer of Jun Tsunoy and features 56 tracks. But what I chose was actually the Time Eater boss theme. Why? Well, due to the fact I wanted to choose a track that wasn't already from another game, and personally I just love the vibe of the Time Eater boss theme, but the theme slaps when you really listen to it. Also, this boss fight is like 100 times better on the 3DS, but you didn't hear that from me. The iconic Wii U title is next on our list with Sonic Lost World. This game has a pretty controversial opinion from the fans as I've seen both love and hate for this soundtrack. Now, overall, I'm gonna be honest, this soundtrack isn't too bad, but it's nothing special by any means. Sonic Lost World has the lead composer with Tomoyo Otani and has a total of 102 tracks. Overall, there are quite a few stages to choose from, but honestly, they aren't super memorable, so we have levels like Windy Hill and Desert Ruins, which exist, I guess, but for me, the main track I love to revisit is Silent Forest Act 2, really just perfectly encapsulating the amazing sense of quietness and sneakiness that Sonic needs to do to progress through the stage, and the violin that's in the background does an amazing job to keep you tense and to make sure that you are not caught at all costs. Okay, so honestly, this is another diamond, or well, let's just put it that way. Sonic Mania is next on our list, and again, while it's impossible to undermine how fantastic the lead composer being Pete Lopes did with this soundtrack, there are some tracks that return from previous titles. So I'll mainly focus on the Mania original stuff. This game features a few new level themes with Studiopolis, Press Garden, and even Titanic Monarch, but what stood out to me the most was Mirage Saloon Act 2. In my opinion, it's genuinely the best track to come out of this game. This song feels like the music you'd hear from a bar in Western times, which is just great, and plus Mirage Saloon Act 2 itself has some of the best level design in the entirety of Sonic Mania, so this music backing it up so well just brings it all together. Following the greatness of Mania, we have Forces. This game is shit. I mean, there is no other way to put it. However, as bad as this title is, the music is actually not too bad. Many of the tracks are fantastic and even has a great vocal theme with Fist Bump, and some of these tracks I actually listen to all the time. But without getting sidetracked, in Sonic Forces, the gameplay is split between the OC, Classic Sonic, and Modern Sonic. So for this game, I'll be choosing tracks based on each of the characters. The lead composer for Forces' soundtrack is Tomoyo Otani with a total of 87 tracks. For the rookie, my favorite track is Prison Hall. See, there were quite a few options like Virtual Enemies or Spaceport, but out of the options, Prison Hall was just the most enjoyable to listen to. See, the thing you'll notice about the rookie stages are that his or her stages contain vocal elements which both Sonics lack in their level themes. Moving on to Classic Sonic, I'm gonna be straight up. I actually really don't like a lot of the Classic Sonic tracks in this game, and I'm just gonna say Ghost Town, because it's the only one that doesn't make me want to tear my ears off. As for Modern Sonic, it's easily going to be Luminous Forest. I actually didn't have to think too hard about it, since it was the only level I actually enjoyed going back to on the off chance that I was so bored that I would actually go play Sonic Forces. The second to last game on our list is Sonic Frontiers. Once again, the lead composer for this game is Tomoyo Otani, and there are a whopping total of 146 tracks. So this game is literally structured like no other and is a collectathon with open zone areas, and it isn't really level to level like prior Sonic titles, so it was a bit hard to understand what does and doesn't work with our established rule set. So what I went with was choosing any track that wasn't a boss theme. So we had to choose between the island themes, cyberspace, or just any others. So my choice? SOS Backup or the main quest theme. Why? Because it's a fucking banger, and I love the jazz that comes with this melody. And sure, we have other amazing tracks like Big's fishing theme or even the Uranus Island theme, but come on man, I'm a sucker for jazz. But any choice from Frontiers soundtrack is just a great choice because dude, it's Frontiers, it's great. The music is just... Last but not least is Sonic Superstars. Well, as many of you know, Sonic Superstars was a pretty major disappointment for me, and sadly the soundtrack wasn't saved. The lead composer for this game is Jun Sonoy, although he did have help with this title from some very talented people like T. Lopes, but like I said in my review for Superstars, which if you want to watch is on the iCard up above, this really is a hit or miss soundtrack, going from Sonic 4 quality to Mania quality, and well, it's really not too hard to choose. There are still a couple of good tracks like Bridge Island Act 2, Speed Jungle Act 1, and Amy's Lagoon City Act, but as of now, the most memorable track for me was Lagoon City Act 2, a truly great track that stood out amongst the crowd. Overall though, most of these Sonic tracks that I've chosen today have a pretty substantial reason as to why I chose them, but I think that covers it. So when going back and thinking thoroughly on what is the best track, I think that my choices were pretty solid. Now if you disagreed with me on any of my points or choices, let me know in the comments down below, as I'd love to hear what you guys think and what tracks you guys chose and which ones we might have agreed on. But for now, I think that's all I have to say on what the best track in every mainline Sonic game really is. Hey, and welcome to the end of the video. Socials to my Twitter, Twitch, and Discord will be in the description down below if that interests you as always. Huge thank you to my members of the channel, and thank you guys for even giving me a dime. If you want to be a member and have your name be at the end of videos, make sure you press that join button right next to the subscribe button, which you should also totally press because guess what, it's free, and if you regret it for whatever reason whatsoever, you can always come back and unsubscribe later. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have a good one.